Has anybody ever come back to you and like thanked you and said, hey man, like you were a really inspirational person, motivational person in my life during a tough time?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots.
What's one story that like really stands out to you?
I had a young man that his mom brought him in, and he was really overweight, lacked confidence, and dad lived in Mexico. Just really broken, man. Just a broken kid, and just beat up by the lack of confidence. And so his mom brings him in, and it was like immediately I felt like, okay, I need to really help this kid. So over the years, I prayed for him, man, worked out with him, did special visits to the house, when he lost his way sometimes. And I mean, he comes back, 5 years later, and I'm talking this kid went from 300 something pounds to, he's shredded.
Damn.
Wow.
Shredded.
It's like 180.
Probably 165.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And
Crazy.
I see him running through the streets of Renton. And I'm looking at this kid, and I'm like, geez, this kid looks familiar, but maybe I'm mistaken. And I look over, and I'm like, I know him. And I roll the window down. My daughter's in the car with me, and I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? And he's like, man, I'm doing good, Coach D. Man, I love you, man. Like, look at me, man. I'm running, I'm boxing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then he later goes on to, reach out to me on Instagram. He direct messaged me, and it's just like this spiel, man. And I'm just like,
wow,
like tear you up,
Yeah, that's
like tear
deep.
you up, and you're like, okay, this is what it's about.
Hey guys, this is the Untapped Potential Podcast. Today we're tapping in with Coach D. Welcome, Coach D.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Of course. And Coach D runs Diesel Performance Training out of Kent, Washington, and has a very interesting journey. And I kind of just want to start at the beginning, Coach D.
Yeah.
Where do you come from, and what led you to doing what you do today?
Yeah, so just collegiate athlete, my whole life. And, well, obviously high school, the collegiate athlete, played football. Very much so a sports guy. So along the journey, the thing that I enjoyed and loved to do the most was play football or, play baseball or run track. And so for me, it was only a reality at some point to come back to doing something physical or educating, kids in the area of physical. So that's pretty much how the whole thing got started for me. And then obviously going off to school, going through like most people, so many different majors, like, this isn't it. This isn't what I want to learn. And then ultimately getting back to the purpose of probably kinesiology or movement studies, things that's driven me. I'd love to find a passion and a purpose in doing those things so that days wouldn't feel like work, and more so I'd be pouring into people. So going to Wazoo, getting into kinesiology and loving the body, loving to work out, loving to understand the science of the body. It just slowly moved into that, and here we are 16 years later.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who introduced you to sports?
That's a very good and interesting question. My uncle introduced me to sports and got me going with baseball, taught me the discipline of that. And then ultimately what really drove my passion was transitioning from junior college, getting ready to make this transition into Washington State. There was a guy, his name is Bryant, and a lot of people are familiar with him. He played for the University of Washington. His son now is a professional athlete for the Detroit Lions. But I come over to him, and it was an opportunity to grow, right? I wanted to work out and get better. There was things that I was good at, but he definitely could take me to that next level. And it was more not of what he was teaching me, and in relevance to the lifts and the things of that nature, but it was the joy that every time when I walked into his small studio, this guy had a place that it was just a garage, right? But every time I walked in there, he had this just renowned like joy and energy about him. And I'm just looking at him, and I'm like, we're only working out, dude. Like, why are you so hyped up, right? So just being around him and being able to grow in my discipline as far as being an athlete, And then his energy, it probably had a lot to do with his belief system. But I remember walking out of there one day and I'm like, dude, whatever this guy's doing, I have to have a taste of it. And from this day forward, it's always been that. Like, I remember E drove me to be a performance coach, and I just wanted to have that feeling and that impact on people. So that's where it started. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's crazy how one person can just have such a huge impact on your life, right? And like you said, it's that energy that he brought into your life. You never forget that energy that people bring.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that was it for me, and it's relatively, it's like, what draws people to you, are you a source of light, or, or what you're putting out, is it light? Is it generating, good things, So that was it for me. And like I said, once I walked out of that gym and I headed up to Wazoo, and I was running faster and I was stronger and I was bigger. I mean, just to really break it down, it was like, I got whatever this guy's doing, I got to do it, and I got to find a way to do it. So,
did he mentor you then in this new path that you were going on?
I would when I came to him, it was just a workout, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like naturally, it's like, it wasn't like he ever sat down with me and said, hey, these are the things you want to do, these are the things you don't want to do. It was more so his actions, right? And so when you think about that, and I relate it to my kids now, it's like how important it is for me as a father, like more is caught than taught. Like I can talk to my kids all day about anything, or I can scream at them all day about what they need to do, how to be disciplined and have integrity. But it was the way he carried himself, And so for me, I feel the same way now, like as an adult, as a 40-year-old man, I'm like, hey, you guys got to carry yourself this way. But instead of me saying it all the time, I'm just going to lead by example. Right. So that's how it went, pretty much.
What led you to want to choose Washington State University?
That's another good question. So, transferring from College of the Redwoods, which is down in Eureka, California. Okay. We call it basically the Southern Oregon, if you will, because it's just a skip over the border.
It's a small town, right?
Very small.
Like how many people are we talking about?
I can't remember exactly how many people, but there's probably like 3 stoplights, right? And,
oh, wow.
And cows everywhere, and kind of like Pullman, to be honest with you, right? Like maybe in the early years, but very small, very isolated. I mean, pretty much it's football and school, and that was it, right? So coming from there, I had like 2 solid years, was able to come on and probably get I think I got my first start my second game of the season. Our cornerback went down the first game. Here I am, a greenhorn. I get thrown in, and I think I made plays by accident, to be honest with you. But I made some plays that were instrumental, and then the next year just kept it going, right? Found my belief system, kept it going. But the whole Pullman thing was my best friend. He was already a walk-on at Washington State, and like from a kid, like you want to stay local.
Yeah.
Obviously, just to be blatantly obvious, don't bleep me out on this one, but growing up in Seattle, I wanted to play for the UW. Like, that's just it, right?
You gotta leave, man.
Let's just be honest, right? I'm a Seattle kid, city kid, so obviously UW was the first take, and they obviously went different directions and things that transpired. So going to junior college, and then coming out knowing your best friend, that connectability, somebody that is already at Washington State, and they're basically, making it happen. It seemed more like a reality for me, and at that time, I had Boise State, I had Oregon, like all invited walk-ons, and Washington State just seemed like a reality for me, right? Your best friend's there, there's relatability. You got somebody that's already doing it. And then probably a fraternity party.
Yeah. It didn't take too much convincing for you.
No, I didn't. I think the first recruiting trip, right, I go up and hung out with my best friend. He was obviously a Pike, which I later became, and he was on the football team, man. So it was like the best of both worlds.
Good times, right? I'm Pullman, man.
Yeah,
you can't beat that.
You're just a young kid, man. So and you're coming from Eureka, California, where
there was
no parties.
No parties.
We're
not partying. I mean, we might hang out with the cows a night or two.
A bonfire or something every now and then.
Right. So that's what happened, and I just came up there, and I remember driving up there because I actually was on a Greyhound, Greyhound up from California and the Greyhound back. But I remember like coming back with all my Russell gear on. This was back when Russell was a big thing for Wazoo.
Right.
So yeah. So I remember coming back and I like wore my clothes back and wore them like every day. Like they're like, dude, are you gonna change? I'm like, nah, this is it. This is where I'm going, man. This is the vision. I gotta walk in it.
You're manifesting it.
Yeah. So that's what happened, and got there and had a good time. Good time.
Nice. So you get to Wazoo. What was that like? 2 years there.
Well, let's see. Let's talk. Let's be transparent and let's talk about the good and the bad of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No limits on this podcast.
No limits, right? So I get to Wazoo, and basically like I was referencing before, you know, I got there. I hadn't finished up my associate's degree from College of the Redwood. So what they do is when you're a young man, right, that comes in and you want to be a student athlete, if your associate's degree is not finished, then you have to ultimately just go to school on Washington State's campus, or you can stay where you're at, right? But we just went to school, or I just went to school there for a semester, finished up my general eds, finished up my prereqs, right, so that I could actually be classified as a student athlete. And within doing that, I did well, right? But also within doing that, you know, I found myself, because I didn't have my core structure, which was playing football, you know, and being disciplined every day. So I had to find a way myself to be disciplined without being a part of what has made me disciplined, right? And so you talk about getting there and doing the tryout and making the team and doing well with that, to joining fraternities, and you throw all that in there, right? And like I said, from the beginning, I'm just a kid from Renton, Washington, that goes to Eureka, California, and you get over there to this. I mean, at that time, I think, geez, we were probably one of the biggest party schools in the nation.
Yeah.
I mean, we were up there with Florida and all that. So,
yeah.
I mean, you know, you just find out real quick what you don't know and what you do know. And so I was, you know, doing my thing, but there was a lot of ups, right? But there was definitely big drop-offs for me, right? So I got there, made the team, did well, made a serious impact in practice. And let's just go into it. It was our third week of the season. And Coach Green comes up to me and he's like, hey, man, this is your opportunity. You've been balling out in practice, making big plays. We're going to just start you off. We got Oregon this week. We're going to travel you down to Oregon. And to Autzen, you're going to play in Autzen. You're going to travel you. This is a big deal, man. Like, we believe in
Oregon
you.
too.
Oh man, it was a big deal, right?
Yeah, big opportunity for you.
Right. So that's the high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine this, like within that same moment, within that hour to 2 hour window, we all practice breaks, great practice. You know, everybody takes a knee in front of Dobes, and you know he's kind of going through his spiel, and all of a sudden, Mr. Deeds, Coach Deeds, which was our academic advisor. And so he starts calling out names, and this is the guy that ultimately in the room you just don't want to have to deal with this dude, right? Because he's not going to bring you great news.
Yeah.
And so Coach Dietz, he's like, I need to see this guy, and this guy. Well, finally he gets to my name. And then when he calls your name, like, you know, your peers, your guys that you live with, you know, at the time I lived with Carl Pema, Greg Prater, and Tyron Brackenridge. So these were my stable mates. So they look over at me like, oh no, what does this mean, right? And so I meet with him after practice, and ultimately he's like, dude, you've been deficient 2 semesters in a row. He's like, what's this about? Like, you got the opportunity of a lifetime. You've been deficient 2 years in a row, and there's nothing I could do about it, right? So you talk about you reaching the pinnacle, ultimately, of your life, because as a kid, that's all you ever envisioned is being a collegiate athlete, right? A collegiate athlete and professional. And then all in the moment of about 90 minutes, your life is at the peak of where it could be, and then the bottom falls out, right? And so that's what happened to me, and ultimately I get sent home and kicked off the team.
No way.
Damn, from WSU.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So all the hard work, right? All the discipline, and all the dedication that I put into this is all of a sudden just wiped off the table.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's just because of mistakes that have just been compounding over time, right?
Well, you get to a place in your life and you realize, okay, and me and my wife actually talked about it like literally just last night. It's like you get to these places and these peaks, right? You get to the mountaintop, and sometimes as an individual, you'll think, I'm here, but you're not present, right? And so sometimes situations like that, it's like, where does that come from? Well, my upbringing, right? You look back to your upbringing, single mom, no father, just a kid from South Seattle that gets moved to Renton with his grandparents to find his way and find structure. But without having a dad there, I didn't have this confidence and belief system in myself, right? Because that's where it comes from. Ideally, I look at my son, I look at my stepchildren, and I'm like, they have to get their confidence in their belief system from me. Like, I'm the closest thing to God on earth, right? Like we all have something we believe in. We all have something we look up to. For me, it's Christ, and that's where I drive my confidence. That's where I drive my discipline. That's where I drive my values, and that's how I move about my day-to-day basis. Well, on earth, your kids, they get it from you. So for me, not having a dad, what I realized is, and it took me until about 38, 39, is, dude, I get to spots where I had this tug of war. Like I believed I was supposed to be there, but because of all the sabotage, I just took myself away from it.
Man, that is so deep. That's like that, almost like imposter syndrome, but take it to the next level where, like you said, you self-sabotage because you might have earned that spot, you worked for it, but deep down inside, you didn't believe you belonged there.
No, absolutely not. And so it goes back to what we were talking about, like my first opportunity at College of the Redwoods, right? My guy goes down, I'm the next guy up, and I'm like, I just made a play. Versus me knowing like I was positioned and I was capable to make that play, and that's why it happened. The energy made it happen, right? And me being in the right position, living my life practically in my back pedal, driving on the ball. Like, but there was still inside of me this lack of belief in oneself, which was tough, man, because you go through all the stuff that you go through, and then you get to, 29, 30, 32, 33, and you're still trying to find your way.
Yeah.
Right?
Man. And so you left Wazoo. What was next?
Well, I was in shambles for a while. I mean, I really was, right? Because, it's often talked about when you do something for so long.
And that's your life. Like, that's your goal, right? And you're so close to achieving it, and then it gets taken away from you.
Right. So once that rug gets pulled out from under you, well, when you're an insecure guy, it even gets worse, right? It's like, okay, what do I cling to now, right? And then you ultimately almost you go into this abandonment too, of like, okay, whatever it is that I was doing, like I want to be the farthest away from it. Like, let's just be honest. I think the moment I came back, I went to work, and I think at that point I was drinking 40 ounces of liquor and smoking cigarettes.
Wow.
Right? So you go completely the opposite direction of your belief system or the things that you did before, because you did, your life is in shambles, dude. Like,
yeah.
Like,
you want to just forget.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want to forget because you have pain from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have this conscious mind, like, I know better, right? I know better. I know where I'm supposed to be at. I know what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Even when you're getting that conversation from Coach Deej, you're like, gosh, I knew better. Like, I just had to be more disciplined. Why was I not more disciplined?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's just about having those cornerstones, right? Those people in your life that will encourage you along the way and encourage your vision. They believe in you. I had very few of those.
So how did you get yourself like out of this rut? Because eventually you went back to play for WSU, right?
No, I was completely done.
Oh, okay. So that was your last stint.
That was the last
stint.
So
you never played college ball ever again?
That was done.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it.
So yeah, explain to me like what happened in those, days, weeks, months. Like obviously you were in a rut. I'm assuming maybe depression started creeping in.
Absolutely.
Like tell me kind of your mindset there and how you were able to recover from it.
Well, what happened from there was, obviously, I go home and I'm moved back in with my mom. I'm kind of just at a loss for what's next or what to do, and so I move in with my mom. And like I said, I'm just basically sabotaging at this point, right? But she's there for me. She's keeping me going. And then I transition from, like, one day I just wake up and I'm like, and it had a lot to do with the people that I was around, you know, and not that I was saying that I was better than them, but I knew better, and there was a better way. So we moved to Renton. My mom lost her house. We moved to Renton, and that was part of it. You know, it was kind of like growing up, it's like, this is how I'm going to help my mom. She's a single mother. I'm going to play ball. I'm going to play in the league. What transition, as well as my heart transition, you know? And we moved to Renton, and I basically took care of my family, my mom, and, you know, my mother had 2 other kids, so I had 2 more siblings. And once again, she's still a single mom, you know, no dad there, no structure. And so I kind of took that role on. And then within that window of time, I was able to say, okay, Eric Bryant, the trainer, I'm going to be a trainer. Like, I found it. This is it, right? And it's just moments of epiphany, and, you know, you just sitting with yourself and being able to think, and a little bit of quiet and a little bit of silence. And so I thought about Eric. I thought about training. And so I got certified. I went on to work at 24 Hour Fitness in Renton in 2006. And I just grinded my butt off, man. And I remember it vividly, walking in and talking to my fitness manager. I'm like, I know this is what I can do. This is what I love, but all I want to do is train athletes. And he looks at me and goes, bro, there's no way this is going to happen, dude. Like, you're going to have to train general public. So I'm like, all right. So I think, you know, with fitness managers and awesome other dudes around me, man, I think I realized that this is going to be my opportunity. This is where I'm going to build on it. And I was blessed at that point to be number one trainer in the nation.
Wow.
For 24 Hour Fitness for 2 years.
Wow.
What goes into that? Like, is it just, I guess, reviews, or?
It's obviously it's a business, so it's what you're bringing in, right?
Yeah,
the revenue
right.
you're driving in. But I tend to like to move myself and my headspace away from that, and just know that I was serving a lot of people in a good way, and so they valued me and they want to keep coming back, right? So that's awesome. So that's what happened. So in a month, you know, I'd gross, and I used to hate talking to which is a strong word, but I really feel that way. But I used to hate talking to my fitness manager about numbers. You know, you had to do weekly projections or monthly projections,
right? And
I hate it. And he's like, "This is what you got to do. These are the numbers you got to hit." And I'm just like, "Dude, I'm just gonna go out and do my thing to the best of my ability, and I believe all this will come in." Right? Yeah. So it happened, luckily, but yeah. Right?
So from 24 Hour Fitness, you went straight into personal training?
Well, I was doing personal training there.
Got it.
Okay, and I was there for about, let's say, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half. Then I had this itch to go back and play football, right? And so I went down and tried out for the Arizona Rattlers in Arizona.
AFL League?
Yeah, Arena League. And got cut doing that. And I remember vividly, it's like I was down there, and I'm thinking as I'm working it out, and I'm doing good. And I feel really good, and I believe in myself. I feel like I'm better than a lot of guys that are there. And it was basically our cut day, right? So like in the league, there's roster cuts, and so there was our cut day. It was like the last cut that you can have. And I remember at that point praying, right? Because obviously I'm a spiritual man, so I'm praying. I'm like, man, God, give me a sign, right? And there's a lot of things that transpired in between my daughter, and I'm like, give me a sign, like if this is where I'm supposed to be, let me know, like, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. And like, I think the cut time was like 8 p.m. If you weren't cut by 8 p.m., you were on the roster. It was go time. And 7:59. I think I finished my prayer up at like 7:59. And I get a knock on the door, 7:59 and 30 seconds. Boom, 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 boom. And I look at my guy that was in the room with me, because they made us share hotels. So I look at the guy that's in the room with me, and I just like put this big smile on my face, and he's like, bro, this isn't good. Like, what's the deal, man? Why are you looking like that? They're knocking on our door. One of us is going home. And I just knew at that moment inside, right? Like this is it. Like this is the sign I've been praying for. This is what I've been asking for. So then that's how I ended up back at 24 again.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I got cut. So I come back home and just dive back into 24 again and get back to what I'm doing. And then about a year and a half after that, that's when I started my own gym in my own garage.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's Diesel Performance Coaching.
Diesel Performance Coaching. Yeah. Diesel Fitness.
There you go.
It's took on numerous names.
Right? So it's been going for your personal gym has been going for about 15 years or
15 going on 16.
15 going on 16. Yeah. Wow. You've probably learned so much in that process, but what were those first years like just building it up, and who did you lean on for advice on how to do that correctly?
I think the first years were tough. Let's just be honest. They were tough. Because there's a lot you have to learn.
Right.
And you're enforcing territory you don't know, right? And then you add children and a family and a household on top of that. Very stressful. But the people I leaned on, weirdly so, it was what I knew from being, a personal trainer and doing the numbers and projections, the things that I didn't like the most, those things I picked up on. And I utilized those to grow the business. But I think even more so, it was my clients. It was the people I had in front of me on a day-to-day basis. And they were speaking to me about their life experiences, but it was also giving me truth and knowledge about how I could go about mine. Right? So it wasn't like I went to some gym owner and was like, hey man, how do you do this? And do you sell supplements? Do you do that? I never did any of that. What I did was I used my own personal drive and my clientele base, which was my belief system. Like, they believed in me, right? These were the people that, before I even did it, were like, dude, you got to start your own gym, right? But then again, like we talked about before, that's that kid that's like, I can't do it.
Right.
I can't do it. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to finish. And, there's no way. Like, there's an opportunity to fail. I can't do it. I'd rather not touch it. So clients pushing me. My daughter's mother, she had a belief in me. There's certain days where I'd come home for 24, like, dude, I'm making these guys a ton of money. I don't like how they're going about it. And I prefer to just do it my way.
Going back onto that whole like belief system and kind of that, not having that faith into yourself sometimes, was starting your own business big in kind of building that self-confidence and kind of betting on yourself a lot more?
That's what did it. It's like I had to begin to believe in myself. I had to begin to believe in what my clients were telling me. I had to believe in what the people in my corner who were pushing me and encouraging me, right? And wanting to be a part of, with very little validation. They just want to be a part of it. They're just, it's, people will look at you and they'll say, dude, I see so much potential. Untapped potential. Right? I see so much potential in you, right? And they're just like, and that's your corner, man. That's your team. Those are the people that have your back, and they're going to drive you.
Yeah.
Naturally. They're just going to drive you. And you may not know why, but they do. And you arrive at your destination, and then you start to, okay, I am where I'm supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is it.
No, 100%. Another thing I found kind of interesting about you too is you also did like physique competitions, right?
Yeah.
So like bodybuilding.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome because you got the athletic and you got the physique, which is kind of two different things, right? When you really think about it. So that's really versatile. What made you want to dive into that?
I had a good friend that later became my coach, and her name is Tangi Johnson. She's like as far as the Pacific Northwest, she's like the Arnold, right, of physique and the women's division.
That's
and
great.
she was awesome. She's still like my sister to this day. Awesome woman of God. And she just looked at me one day and was like, dude, you should come compete. Like, I know you're a football player, but your body will transition well. And I looked at her and I'm like, no, There's no way I'm getting up there with these little draws on.
I was going to say, was your impression of just a bunch of dudes tanned up in bikinis and stuff?
So that was it, man. And I was like, there's no way you're going to put these little draws on me and think I'm going to stand in front of people. I'm not okay with it, right? And so for a while, she would always be like, well, what? At some point, they're going to start a different division. It's going to be men's physique, and it'll be more like a model, right?
Oh, so the men's physique wasn't even a division back then.
No.
It was just bodybuilding.
It was bodybuilding.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
okay.
You were going to either wear a thong or, that was it, So, yeah, that wasn't even an option. And then I remember her saying, like, bro, I know you'll be so good at this. Yeah. And I was just like, nah, I'm cool. I'll pass, right? I'll just keep working out, be aesthetically pleasing, and that's fine. And then they came out with a new division. And it was like it was called men's physique, and you could wear board shorts.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, that's not bad. That's not bad. I'll hear you out. And she's like, bro, you got to do it. Like I'm telling you, you would kill it. And surely, like I said before, it's those people that like look at you and they're like, or could feel your energy and your spirit, and they're just like, dude, you'll do good at it. And so I believed in her, right, because of her actions and how she lived her life, and so I just started doing it. Also, part of it was like, I'm a personal trainer, and if there's any facet in this industry that I need to learn them all, right? That's so true. You could study PES so you can know how to train athletes, but for me that came naturally. I was one myself, right? You could do CPT and go through all those corrective exercises so that you can train the general public, right? And then you got the side of bodybuilding. So it was her. And then the recognition of like, maybe I do need to go learn this because at some point I could be serving that side of the industry. And I got into it. And I think my first competition was her competition. I think I placed like 4th, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Which is pretty good, I mean, for your first time, right?
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. And then I ended up, because with her is IFBB, and then there's another side of it, right? And it's like this. It's hard to explain. Like there's a guy by the name of Ulysses who was big on that side of it. Simone Panda was another guy. So they're on the other side of bodybuilding.
They're like the big Instagram like bodybuilders.
Right. And then you got Chelsona, right? But they're all in this different division. It's like a national division. So I go off down to Vegas. I sign up for this behind her back, right? She gets me another competition going, and I'm excited about it. Okay. But I'm like, dude, I need to fact check on my own. I need to see if this is fail proof or not, right? So I go off behind her back, and I sign up for this other competition in Vegas. It's called Muscle Mania.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now you got guys coming from Croatia, China, Korea. I mean, all over, dude.
International,
right? And so I'm like, I got to size up against these other guys and see if what she's saying is legitimate, right? I got to see if she's really like not just blowing smoke up my tailpipe. And so I go down there, and still to this day, you got Ulysses. I competed against him, which is weird to even think about, right? So Simone Panda competed against him, which is weird to think about. And another guy by the name of Chelsona, he's more of an Instagram guy now, but he's not competing as much. So all those dudes at the time were men's physique guys, and now you see them now, and you're like, what? What happened, bro?
They went way past.
Right. You guys really bought in. So I go down there, I compete against those guys, man, and I think I got 6th down at that one, and that was very inspiring to me.
That's good, man.
That's awesome.
Like, this is my
against those guys too, nationally recognized guys.
Right, and these guys were doing it, man. And here I am, some crusty football player, just trying to get my obliques to shrink down because I've done too much hitting and squatting without a belt on, right? Like, what was a belt? Right? You wear belts to play football, right? So that was that, man, and it just kept growing from there, and I come back to Seattle and pick up a coach, an awesome dude. His name's Nate, and Nathan DeTracy. He was a bodybuilder, did it for a while, and he just started doing my nutrition and playing with it and tweaking it a little bit. And next thing you know, I'm on the Emerald Cup stage winning.
Wow.
Winning in my division.
Yeah.
And, other local shows. I mean, I don't think there's a local show I haven't won. Praise the
Wow.
Lord.
There you go.
So it's like, I don't know how I got here, but this is fun. I'm going to keep winning.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How many years did you do that for?
6.
6 years.
Yeah, 6 years
wow.
competing. Yeah.
Wow. So you took home all the trophies and said, all right, I'm good.
Yeah, there's somewhere in a box and somewhere, but I did
That's
pretty good. I think my worst placement locally was probably 3rd.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Emerald Cup a couple times, first place, second place, third place. I think one year, I mean, it was almost the demise of me. One year I got like 3rd place, or one year I got 3rd place, and then the next year I came back and got 3rd place. I almost quit.
Damn.
Yeah.
And you're like, I can't improve with these guys.
I'm like, what's up?
That stuff's a lot of work too, because you got to eat right, and then you still got to keep working out. You're like on this caloric deficit, and
right?
That's crazy.
It's crazy, man. I would say in my lifetime of every sport, wrestling, track, I mean, that's probably one of the serious disciplines, right?
Yeah, because you got to be on your macros, and you have to. I mean, what's like the mental game for you throughout those 6 years? Like, I'm sure you were tracking food, you had a diary, but how did that impact your social life and kind of your life in those 6 years?
It did a lot. There was a lot of birthdays because Emerald Cup was in April, so there was a lot, and my birthday's in April.
Oh, okay.
So there was a lot of birthdays I missed, a lot of events, social gatherings that I missed. But I was just in a very disciplined spot, in my life where I want to be like absolutely disciplined and just be dialed into this. But also too, finding out later, it's you're really self-absorbed too.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So it's just like,
and you have to be. I mean, to some extent, right, in order to maximize your potential.
Right. That's just it, and that's what the industry calls for. But I wouldn't do it anymore.
Right.
I love my wife. I love my family. Right.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Sometimes I got to say yes to her wanting to have a piece of cheesecake, or no, I got to compete tomorrow.
And then she feels guilty.
Right. So. My girlfriend at the time, I feel bad for her, because I was no fun, man.
Yeah.
I was no fun. It's a serious discipline. Like, and if you really want to do good at that, you just really have to dive in, pretty much whatever coach puts on the nutrition plan, you measure it, you do it to the T, you don't deviate from that.
Right.
You got to stay with it, 4 a.m. fasted cardios, you go work out at noon on your break and come home, and everything and all the things that you think about are eating. You're looking at the clock, right? Everything is like down to that minute, that second, that hour.
It gets to that point though, right? Because if you're already great and you want to go to that next level, you need to get down to those like minutes, seconds, macros.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's probably, like I said, probably one of the craziest disciplines you ever go through.
I saw on your website that you one of your biggest passions is coaching youth.
Absolutely.
What do you do for youth programs?
So what I do for the youth programs are run different skilled camps, right? So defensive backs, safeties, corners, as well as I'll take on linebackers and receivers because I know the game well enough. But I do a lot of camps, a lot of group training with these guys, and that's my lane, right? So it's my opportunity to work with that group of, I work with athletes ranging from pros to 8th graders, But my favorite lane is that youth program. And the reason why I drive it on my website is because it's very important to me, right? If I think about my life and my purpose, it brings me back to that youth, right? Everything that I've been through, all the reasons I wasn't successful, at playing football and making it to the league, being disciplined, making the right decisions, it always takes me back to my youth where I didn't have direction. And so God bless these kids. I love them, but they don't realize what I'm really there for, right?
Right.
And what's happened is the Lord has used my physique, right, and my knowledge of the game and status for me to get to them and work them out, but have more so an opportunity to just pour into them.
How many kids do you think you've coached over this period of time?
Jeez, man.
And the reason I say that is because I feel like there's been a handful of times now where, because you've been a part of the brand, Dripped,
Yeah.
And when we posted photos, somebody's always messaged me saying, "Hey, that's my coach."
Right.
And it's always a different person.
Right.
That's true. Yeah.
Jeez, man. I mean, golly. I honestly, I lost count. I mean, I've been the performance coach at Liberty High School, Skyline for a number of years, Mercer Island, Hazen, Kentwood.
Wow. So basically the entire Seattle area.
Yeah. And then, with the gym, you get an opportunity to coach people, like you guys are familiar with Isaiah.
Right.
Gosh, I'd say thousands. And on different generations. Like I said, I started this thing 16 years ago. So, I mean, heck, it'll probably be your kids too at some point, right? Right. So
they're at different stages in life.
Man, I tell you, I think probably about 5 years ago, I'm at the point where kids, well, they're not kids anymore, right? But they were kids to me, and I carried them and motivated them, educated them through the ranks, and they got kids. Right, so I'm getting up there, man. And I keep saying 40, but I'm 39, but I feel 40. Right,
you're rounding up, man.
Right?
That's cheating.
I just trying to get there, right?
Yeah,
whatever it takes. I think I'll be smarter by next year.
Has anybody ever come back to you and like thanked you and said, "Hey, man, like you were a really inspirational person, motivational person in my life during a tough time"?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots.
What's one story that like really stands out to you?
I had a young man that his mom brought him in, and he was really overweight, lacked confidence, and obviously, gosh, with training, man, it always starts as a physical thing, right? Like people about, okay, physically, if I go do this will help me here. But anyway, his mom brought him in, single mom. Dad lived in Mexico. Just really broken, man. Just a broken kid, and just beat up by the lack of confidence and gaining weight, finding food as a value for him that made him eat excessively and not want to, kind of isolate. So his mom brings him in, and it was like immediately I felt like, okay, I need to really help this kid. So over the years, I prayed for him, man, worked out with him, did special visits to the house, when he lost his way sometimes. And I mean, he comes back, 5 years later, and I'm talking, this kid went from 300 something pounds to, he's shredded.
Damn.
Wow.
Shredded.
It's like 180.
Probably 165.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I see him running through the streets of Renton. And I'm looking at this kid, and I'm like, geez, this kid looks familiar, but maybe I'm mistaken. I train a lot of kids, right?
Thousands.
Right. And so I get up to the light, and I look over, and I'm like, I know him. And I roll the window down. My daughter's in the car with me, and I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? And he's like, man, I'm doing good, Coach D. Man, I love you, man. Like, look at me, man. I'm running, I'm boxing, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then he later goes on to, reach out to me on Instagram. He direct messaged me, and it's just like this spiel, man. And I'm just like,
wow,
like tear you up,
Yeah, that's
like tear you up, and you're like, okay, this is what it's about. This is why I'm here, right?
That's awesome.
I'm supposed to encourage people, right?
Yeah,
Motivate people.
Yeah, man. So you really changed this kid's life.
Oh yeah, and there's numerous like that,
Man.
and I say that with humility, but there's numerous like that,
Yeah.
Got another young man when I met him, trouble in school, just it was opposite. Like his mom and dad had split, and just didn't love himself, man. Like parents don't realize the magnitude of when you come together and you do something that's like covenant, right? Like having kids is like it's bigger than just having a kid, man. Like this is you're putting something under a covenant, something that's been given grace and expectations. And so, with my guy, you walk away from these kids, man, and they're broken, right? So that has actually been a lot of my opportunities. But this young man, his mom and dad are split, and dad struggles heavily with his vice, and I'm just there, not by coincidence. I'm there for a reason, and I just poured into him, loved on him, man. Just the universal language, man. Right. Loved on him. Tried to help create more peace in his life, encourage him, through his struggle. And still to this day, man, they call back, man. They call back. They want more. I don't know why.
Like, I need some more advice, coach.
Like, I got a moment, and then that's the 2-hour conversations. We connect, and so he's doing a lot better. Actually walked away from football and just hit me up recently. He's like, "Hey, man, let's start working out."
That's awesome.
Start working out. I'm like, "Coach, I don't think it's done." I said, "Praise the Lord. Let's keep going."
Oh,
I've been waiting for this call, dude. Right? I agree with you, man. I stand with you. Let's do it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So what's next for you, man? Like, in these next few months, what are you taking Diesel Performance Coaching to do next?
Well, a lot's happened in the last 18 months to, pretty much almost 2 years, right? So ultimately I've had to pivot my business, and I'm doing a lot of on-the-go training, no longer just solely attached to one specific location or a studio or a gym. So I train some people out of my small studio, and a lot of them I go to their homes and help them where they're at and help teach them how to build out their gyms, and a lot of, sport-specific training, which only requires a field. But what's next is ultimately growing with the industry. Virtual, man.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going virtual, and so I found my lane in that, just by like blindly reaching around,
Yeah, man.
So, I found my lane in that, and it's good, and it's another driver. But to be honest with you, I don't know, man. I kind of just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
Kind of just go with the flow,
There you go, man. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Absolutely.
We'll have Coach D's social links in the description below, but make sure to check out his Instagram, the infamous Coach D. And you can catch us on Instagram too, the Untapped Potential Podcast.
And subscribe.
Don't
please.
Forget to subscribe.
Coach D wants you to subscribe to the Untapped
Subscribes and likes. Got to happen.
Let's go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.